everyone. Welcome to today's session where we are going to look at the terms ballad and epic. And in the last part of this lecture, we will also discuss about the features which differentiate these two terms, ballad and epic. To begin with ballad, if we define it, a ballad is a form of verse, often a narrative set to music. In simple words, we can say that a ballad is a song or poem which tells us a story. It has two major elements, story and poem, which makes ballad a great way of combining two literary art forms. As like a novel or play, it tells us a story with characters and plot line, and it has also poetic elements in its rhyme scheme and meter. So this amalgamation of two art forms, poetry and novel or drama, it gives an ample opportunity for an individual expression or creativity. And one thing also should be kept in mind, that it is one of the oldest poetic forms, that it is the very ancient tradition of telling the stories through ballad. In the ancient time, it was primarily meant for conveying social messages or popular messages, historical events, or certain stories which usually singers or artists wanted to tell through their songs or poems, and it was transmitted orally. In the ancient time, later it gets an evolution, which we also discuss in the next slide. And if we discuss about the features which this poetic form displays, the peculiarities of this particular poetic form, then the first one is that whenever we read any ballad, the very opening strikes us because it starts all of a sudden. What I mean to say here, that any ballad starts abruptly, which means that without providing any details about the subject matter or plot line, a writer starts writing, or writer writes a ballad, or a singer sings a ballad abruptly, and later in many flashbacks or through many events or through many introductions and lines, we get to know about the beginning, that what was actually in the beginning. So it starts abruptly, and we at once get into the story. For example, these two lines are from the very famous ballad Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, about which also we will discuss in the next slides. So once you should focus on the opening of this ballad and see how this ballad starts. The very first two lines I have written on the screen. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of three. Without providing any nuanced detail, we are just getting to know about an incident, that there is an ancient mariner and he has stopped one of three. So it this is like the starting, which I have given you example. And second one is refrain. Usually we come across the refrains in ballad. Refrain are recurring lines which are repeated after regular intervals in ballad. These are refrain, and it is much like a chorus in a song. We find that there are repetition of certain stanzas. Just like that, there is a refrain in ballad. And the third one, that most of the ballads which are written, we can find that they are this peculiarity, that they don't seem to give us any direct message. We always find that after the whole narration, it is left to the audience to deduce the moral message or moral lesson conveyed by the ballad. So these are certain characteristics which a ballad displays, which I have discussed with you. And after many shifts and variations ballad has gone through, we can divide it into three major categories. First one is folk ballad. Folk ballad is also one of the oldest form of ballad, and it is also called traditional ballad, and it was transmitted orally. Now here we can find the reason that why there are refrains, why there is a very strict rhyme scheme and meter in a ballad. The reason here we can find is its oral transmission, that it was easy for singers to learn the repeated lines, and it was also convenient for singers to memorize the lines by with the help of rhyme scheme, with the help of musical quality. So this due to this oral transmission, ballads were framed in a particular rhyme scheme and with refrains, and that which became their characteristics. So folk ballads, we find that they are the traditional form, and they used to be oral. And the theme, the major theme in most of the folk ballads, we will find it revolves around the culture, about love or adventurous stories, or it used to represent a broader culture of the particular area or region where they are sung. Next one is lyrical ballad. Lyrical ballad is also called literary ballad, and these ballads began to appear in the 18th century. And these ballads were written ballads because up to 18th century, after the arrival of printing, memorization was not that much important, because we were having the availability of written piece, written text. So that's why from Coleridge, if we start, and up to Edgar Allan Poe, if we see the ballads, then we find that they have experimented a lot with the content and with the style of writing both. As for example, that in lyrical ballads we find that the theme is usually about everyday life, that rather than choosing the theme or topic from the very broader culture, like a typical ballad, typical folk ballad, literary ballads were usually written about everyday life or everyday human life, and they were written. Third one is modern ballad, and in the current scenario, any narrative song which tells a story, like pop songs about love, they all are referred to modern ballad. So such is the journey of ballads which they are going through, and there is more evolution possible about this particular art form. But if we talk about the form of a typical ballad, then in English literature we find a typical classical form of ballad in written in the stanzas consist of 4 lines. Throughout the poem we find that all the stanzas are of 4 lines, which we also call quatrain, and all the quatrains are written in a particular rhyme scheme, that is ABCB. So this is the form which which we can say that attributed to a classical or typical ballad. And to see its example, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is one of the famous and perfect ballad, and a very fine its craftsmanship of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, English romantic poet, which is a very perfect example of this classical typical ballad, not in the sense of folk ballad. Even he also experimented a lot, as he is talking about as this Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. It is a story of a sailor about his long voyage, and when he returned from that voyage, then he is telling his story to one of the wedding guests who is going to a wedding, and he stops him, and he starts narrating his story, as we have seen in the very opening line, that he stopped at one of the wedding guests. So it is a lyrical ballad, and to show you the structure of this particular ballad, I have taken one of the stanzas which is on the screen. So you can have a look that the very deep did wrought, O Christ, that ever this should be. Yea, slimy things did crawl with legs upon the slimy sea. So you can see the rhyme scheme. This is the one of the stanzas that is in 4 lines. Quatrain, the condition of quatrain is fulfilled. And next, ABCB rhyme scheme is also very well followed by Coleridge in this, as you can see. by the rhyming scheme B and C are matched. So they are B, B, and A and C are very different. That's why they are being given different letters. So A, B, C, B is the rhyme scheme which is considered of a very typical or classical ballad. And if you want to read more ballads, then I would recommend a poetry collection, Ancient Ballads and Legends of Hindustan by Toru Dutt. And it is a collection of exquisite ballads based on Indian theme. Next one is epic. So this is a second literary term which we are going to start now. If you see its definition, according to Webster's New World Dictionary, epic is a long narrative poem in a dignified style about the deeds of a traditional or historical hero or heroes. Now, after this definition, we can sense that it is also a narrative poem, but it is long. But then too, we can sense that it is pretty much similar to ballad, but it is long. So here we can notice one difference. So it's later this is a one slight hint which I wanted to convey here. In the later part we will definitely focus on the different features which makes them different, though they are both are narrative poems. And let's come back on epic. So if the very features I have highlighted, you can see epic is a long narrative poem. The first one feature is its bulky size. That means epic is a very extensive and prolonged narrative written in verse. And whenever you come across any epic, you will find that it is divided into multiple books. For instance, Homer's epics. Homer's epics are divided into 24 books, and in English literature, John Milton's Paradise Lost has been divided into 12 books. So it is a very feature of an epic that it is a long narrative poem. Second one is its dignified style, which conveys that the diction of epic is very grand, lofty, and elegant. And there is no colloquial or conversational language in epic. It is full of very epithets like epic similes and exaggeration of the way of expression and such things. In simple terms, we can say that the style of the epic is grand. It is written in very grand style rather than in a simple language. Next one is hero or heroes, which conveys that the story or the selection of topic or theme of the epic is always taken from such character who is traditional or historical, which conveys that who has national or international significance, and who displays very remarkable or extraordinary physical or mental traits. That means the personality is of higher stature or very dignified stature. The story revolves around the deeds, adventures, or characteristics of such heroes or heroes, especially in epic. So epic has these main features by which we can identify any poetic form that it can be called epic. And there are certain techniques which a writer follows to give his literary form or poetic form an epic stature. We can say these are the tools, techniques, or the styles which epic takes or contains. First one is proposition, which conveys that in the very beginning of in the very opening lines of any epic writer states the purpose, states the cause of writing the epic, which is called proposition. Second one is invocation. Invocation suggests that any epic always starts by the prayer of the muse. Muse is one of the ancient Greek 9 deities of the arts, and we find always in a poetry which is of epic stature, we will always find that the poet of epic is invoking the muse for giving him right wisdom, courage, inspiration to write, to handle with such a grand theme, to write about the character who is of very uh, grand character or divine, who is full of divine qualities. So this is the invocation which I want to convey, that with the prayer of muse, an epic starts. In midst res, in the middle of things, it says the third one is in midst res, which means in the middle of things. And most of the epics, even any epic we can say, an epic begins with the in the middle of things, which conveys that rather than giving beginning, we always we always find that an epic starts from the beginning of the events, and later we get to know about that how that event happened. uh, uh, I have to jump directly to this example, John Milton's Paradise Lost, where this particular epic starts at once with uh, the mention of fall of Saturn from heaven to hell. That Saturn has fallen from heaven into hell. He has fallen from God's grace. So this event has started, and later we come to know that what was the reason, what he did, or whatever happened. So such is the example which tells us very directly that epic starts in the middle of things. Next one is enumeration. Enumeration tells us, the word enumeration here suggests that the long list of objects, places, or people which are going to appear in the epic. There is a long list about about their genealogies and about their catalogs. They are catalogued in a very long list, and always epic is provided with enumeration, with a long list about the objects, places, and characters uh, appear in epic. Last one is supernaturalism, and there are many more techniques. These are the major one which I have listed here. Supernaturalism is always used by an epic writer to produce awe and wonder in the story. Supernatural elements like gods, demons, angels, fairies, and other things related to supernatural naturalism, these are always included in the epic to give it a supernatural qualities. So this is what epic contains. And as I have already told you, that John Milton's Paradise Lost is one of the remarkable masterpiece in the history of epics. And the last line I have written to tell you that in the very line, Milton too define, or Milton too states its purpose, that why is he going to embark on this journey of writing this epic, because he wants to justify the ways of God to man. So this is one of the example of proposition, invocation. When you read the epic Paradise Lost book first, when you read, then the very first line you will find invocation, that he is praying to muse to give him encourage, to give him courage and energy and proper insight. And in the middle of things, as we have discussed, that it starts from the fall of Saturn directly. Enumeration, you will find a long list of many about the genealogy, or about other introductory things. And supernatural naturalism, as it the very theme suggests that it is about the supernatural elements, it's not about the materialistic themes and topics. So this is the epic which fulfills all those required conditions or elements which a classical epic should have. Now let's have a brief look on the difference of these two poems, which are both are narrative. Ballad and epic both are narrative poetry, but the difference, as you have also noticed, I hope, that is the major differences of length. Ballad is shorter in length than epic. Next one more, if we find out, then we find that ballads are specifically written or composed for singing on a special ceremony or occasion, whereas epics are meant for narrating any story. So here one more difference we can get. Third one is very obvious and very conspicuously we find that ballads, the language of ballad is very simple, whereas epic, as I have told you, that is replete with epic similes, hyperboles, and many more grand and lofty style. So epic is always written in grand style. So these are the differences which makes them apart. And I look forward to see you in the next lecture. Thank you for listening.